So let's go one layer deeper with these helpers. I'm going to flip back to my account controller, go back to my login, and what I want to do now is I want to add a drop down to my login page. Now, we haven't talked about databases yet at this point, so I'm not going to get into that much sophistication, but I'm going to emulate what you could do with a database in generating a drop-down list from data that you pull out of a database. So to do that, I'm going to kind of work backwards. I'm going to flip back to the view, and then you'll see what I need to do in the controller to make it work. So the first thing I'll do, though, is I'm going to add a property to my view model. So what would be a good use of? Okay, so we'll do public string login as, similar to what you did with your homework. So login as will be our property, and then before we get to the always login, I'm going to add another option here, label login as, and then I'll do HTML dot dropdown list for, and in this case we'll be pointing at login as. Now, just doing login as, you get red squiggles. There is no overload that just takes one property. It actually requires, I think, a minimum of 2, maybe 3. So, comma, and we'll see that it's looking for 2 things. First thing it's looking for is an expression. We gave it the expression, our lambda expression with the arrow. The second thing it's looking for is an IEnumerable of select list item that it calls select list. I'm going to put null in there. It's happy with that. Okay? So I don't have anything to put in the list right now, so I'm just going to put it as null. So if I build, and to do that I'm pressing F6. If you're curious, you can just do a build real fast by pushing F6 inside of Visual Studio. Flip back, F5. So it's recompiling, doing all of its little things, and it blows up. So it says there is no view data item of type IEnumerable select list item that has a key of login as. Yep. So what it's saying to us, it's actually saying a few things, and it's kind of saying it in this weird nuancy way. First thing it's telling you is that it needs an IEnumerable select list item. So putting null there is not an answer. It needs something. Well, how's it supposed to render a drop-down list if it doesn't have anything to render, right? That's the basic idea. So I get that. What's interesting is it said that there is no view data item that has the key of login as. So we talked about the view bag last week. The view bag has a sibling, I'm going to say it with air quotes, called view data. They actually both coexist and they share their information. One is just implemented with a dynamic type, the other one is a true key value dictionary type. So what it's doing is, since I put null there, it's trying to find the value, that IEnumerable of select list items, it's trying to find it in the view data or in the view bag. And it's looking in there specifically for login as. So there's 2 ways to solve this problem. The first option is we go back to the controller and we need to build our list of login as options. And then we need to send them to the view. So the first option we have is to actually push data to the view using view list data, pushing that list data in. The second option we have is to push data using view data / view bag. Now we can't use both of them, we have to pick one approach or the other. But there's two ways to handle it, and I'll show you both ways. I'm actually going to do the view data / view bag first, because it's the most common approach, and I'll show you the second approach. Alright, so the first thing we need to do is we need to build this list. So to do that, I'm going to say var list data raw. I'll call it database data, just to give you a point of reference. I'm going to do something like that. For the ones who have done C#, I even see big eyes, so it's fun. So what this is I'm creating a dynamic collection in code. So instead of saying I want to create a new list of strings and then saying, instead of doing, well, this, because really what I want is a list of strings. Instead of doing list string, database data, strings equals new this, and then going database data strings dot add, and then doing that, 3 or 4 times. Okay? Instead of doing this, what I want to do is something that looks more like this. I don't even need it on multiple lines. So what I've done is I've implied that this is now a collection. So new, creating a new collection. The square brackets, that's your array notation. So I'm saying I'm creating a new array of these values. Now I could say a new array of strings, a new string array, but maybe I decide later that I really don't want to use strings, I want to use something more complex. Well, I can put a more complex type in here, and as long as it's all the same type, the C# compiler will figure out that I want a collection of whatever these types are, and it'll create an array of that. So it's actually looking at the data type of the data that's in those curly brackets and figuring out what kind of array to create in memory. If you mix it with different types, it'll kind of, well, as I like to put it, say TFB and just make you an array of objects, because it has no idea what it is, but it all fits inside of an array of objects. So this will give us back an array of strings. Now we have to take that array, and let's pretend like we got that out of the database, right? That's the whole idea. We need to take that and actually put it inside of our view bag, or view data. So again, there's two different things, two different ways. It's all the same implementation at the end of the day. So there's view data, which is a data dictionary, they call it. So you can say add, and the goal here is that you're trying to add a key value collection or key value pair. What I'm basically going to do is I'm going to say this key has to match the key that it yelled at me about here, which is the name of the property that I'm creating the list for, which is login as. So my key has to be login as. And then my value is going to be my database data. The other option is I can use the view bag. Now the view bag is a dynamic, so it gets a little weird. But basically I'll say view bag dot login as equals database data. Both of these lines are doing the exact same work. One is a little more concrete than the other. So view data dot add, the key is login as, the value is database data. Viewbag dot login as equals database data is doing the same thing, the exact same thing. In fact, I could call viewbag dot login as, set it to database data, and then I could go to the view data and say give me login as, and it'll give me back that database data. They're literally going to the same spot. It's just one is a little easier, more direct way of coding it. The view bag is nice because it's convenient. The view bag is dangerous because remember your languages are case sensitive. So if you goof the way that you write out a property, the compiler is not going to tell you you did it wrong. You won't know until you run it, and then it goes, little login as doesn't exist because it's really big login. So you have to be very aware when you're using the view bag. So if we do that, pump it in the view bag, F6 to rebuild, flip back, refresh. Yep, I forgot that part. So it wants it to be an IEnumerable of select list item. It doesn't want just the collection of strings. So to do that, there's actually a class that we use to wrap our collection inside of. So new, and it's called a select list. There is select list item down there further. It's the bottom one. You can basically create a whole bunch of those. We can change all these strings out to be select list items. But the select list is the more common way to do it, because it takes in a collection of values. And now that can be a collection of objects that maybe are your class, your own model classes. They can be something that comes out of another system somewhere, whatever the case may be. And then there's mappings that you can do. For right now, we're just going to stick with these strings. So we'll pump in the strings. So it'll take our collection of strings, turn them into a select list. So F6, rebuild, and refresh. There we go. You flip back to my view real fast, and add a couple of things. Just formatting and style. Added that form control and then a BR tag at the end. Yeah.
Is it possible to do a drop down with an enum?
Yes, you can take an enumerator, and there's actually a drop down list for, or enum drop down list 4 is one of the helpers. So you can do HTML dot enum drop down list 4. Give it the enum and it'll do the enumerator as a drop down.
Okay.
So yes, you can. That's actually something they introduced recently that didn't exist about a year ago. And I kept having to map my enums. It was a pain in the butt. So there are our 3 values and a drop down. And those end up getting posted back just as anything else would. So student, I think I have my debugger connected. Grab my IIS Express and attach to it. That was Control-Alt-P to bring that up. Hit login. Oh, I forgot to set my breakpoint. So without making any changes here, granted I'm not outputting the value, we can look at login VM and see that the login as gets picked up by the model binder. So that drop-down list that we added, those string values we added, all of that gets picked up by the model binder, and it actually loads it into the login as for us. So it streamlines that process. So as we continue to extend the view model, we don't have to go back and touch each one of these post or put actions to make sure that we're incorporating the right parameters. It just maps directly to the view model and does that work for us. So that's kind of a big deal.